I cannot remember a time in my life when I wasn't vertically challenged. I was always among the short kids in the class, which, I mean, that's not like this huge disadvantage. I was only a few inches shorter than the average kids in our class and quite a few inches shorter than the tall kids. Well, partly because of my height, I was not a very good basketball player. Um, then add to that I was not great at handling the ball. I didn't jump very high, and I didn't have any very many shots that I could make. I mean, I just never have been good. I enjoy watching basketball, and I admire people who are good at it. I've never been good at it. Don't and at my age, I'm not going to pick it back up to try and get good at it. Well, part of what this resulted in is whenever we would choose up sides to play a pickup game down in Rodney Evans' driveway, I was always the last guy picked. I know what it's like to be the guy that when you choose up sides, both captains look at each other and go, "You take him." No, you take him. The only other time, or the one that stands out in my memory when that would happen, was if we were choosing up sides for a math bee. I was the last man standing, and not during the competition, but during the choosing. I know what that's like. And to be honest with you, when you're a little kid, there are very few things that feel as bad as being the last one chosen. The idea that God would choose me, I don't blame it on my childhood experiences with choosing up teams. I don't know that I can put my finger on any one thing for blame, but the idea that God chose me has always been a difficult thing. I've intellectually, I've apprehended it. Emotionally, there are still days when I can't say I've embraced it. It's mine. But it's one of the most important pieces of my identity in Christ. And I long to have this sense, strong and secure, immovable, movable, that I am chosen by God. Well, that's what Peter said. He said in verse 9 of chapter 2, 1 Peter, "But you are a chosen people." We are not accidentally God's people. We are not. It's not like God got down to us as last in the choosing and said, "Well, okay, I'll be the bigger one. I'll take them." He wasn't stuck with us. He chose us, according to the Apostle Paul, from before the beginning of the world. This chosenness, it should be, can be, a very personal thing. It's most powerful when it is most personal to us. But when Peter wrote these words back in, the mid-60 AD, they applied directly to an allusion to Israel, because Israel was God's chosen people. Through the Old Testament, over and over and over again, he declares that Israel was chosen by him. They are his chosen people. He has selected them, beginning with Abraham and running all the way through. Now, Peter writes, we have that status, that chosen status. And while it is an individual status, there's also a corporate status. Most of what he writes here in this verse is stated in a corporate sense, a chosen people. Yes, this means you are a chosen person, but it also means that we're a part of a group, a corporate people group, a chosen people group. This has nothing to do with the color of our skin. It has nothing to do with our ethnic origins. It has nothing to do with our nationality. It has only to do with God who chose us. We are a chosen people. I do still want to go back to the individuality of that, though. If I can embrace the fact that God, by intention, chose me, it was not a last resort. It wasn't something that he had bound himself to and he couldn't get out of it. He chose us. If we could believe that about ourselves, I believe it would shape how we treat ourselves and others. We are a chosen people, a royal priesthood. In Israel, the priesthood was a noble profession, and it wasn't a chosen profession. It was a profession that came out of your family. If you were in the tribe of Levi, you were appointed because of this genetic heritage. You would be either a Levite or a priest. People didn't, in the tribe of Benjamin or the tribe of Judah or any of the other 11 tribes, didn't aspire to be priests. They were appointed as priests, and no one outside the tribe of Levi could be appointed as a priest. Their function was essential to the life of the Jew because their function was to represent their need and their calling out to God. To God. They were the intermediary. They were the ones. A Jew could not make their own sacrifice to God. That was prohibited. It had to be done at the hands of a priest. And this is, I don't think we get our hands around that very easily, because what this is saying is we don't need a priest to do this for us, because we now are priests. Jesus is our high priest. He represents us ultimately to God. This idea of the royal priesthood was, I mentioned this earlier, was at the heart of the Reformation. When Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the door of the Wittenberg Chapel, one of his things was every believer is a priest. The priesthood of all believers is how he phrased it. And now the truth is, the reality is, God has appointed us as royal priests. Who do we represent as priests? In Israel, the priests represented the petitioner. Now, in Catholicism and to a large degree in Anglicanism and a few other denominations, the priest is still the designee. They are the representative, and their work is to present to God and represent before him their flock. I'm not going to throw rocks at that. However, I guess maybe I am going to throw a rock or two. And in the form of this idea that those priests are no longer necessary because God has made each of us. We are royal priests. We have been selected. We have been designated. We have been appointed into a royal priesthood. There were the only true royal priest, the only true priest and king was Jesus himself. None of the other kings of Israel throughout the Old Testament were both kings and priests. Jesus was prophet, priest, and king. Now here we are given a similar kind of identity and designation, royal priests, because we have been appointed as priests in this role in our discrete relationship with God, and because we are part of the royal family. Because if God is your father, then you are my sibling, and we are a part of a royal family, a royal priesthood, and then a holy nation. In America today, in 2020, we're struggling mightily as a nation with who we are, how we're going to view one another, how we're going to view ourselves. And frankly, to be a holy nation is so far down the list of priorities that it is obscured almost completely. In my experience, very few people have very much concern with whether or not they are representing a holy nation. It's mainly a nation of power, a nation of influence, a nation, honestly, for me, when I look around, it comes down to the bottom line, a nation of comfort, a nation of security, a nation of safety. People are screaming loud and long about social justice. And I wish, my dream is that America would be a nation of justice. Because if it is a nation of justice, social justice will happen. But to select social justice as our objective is too narrow of a target. When justice defines us as a nation, instead of preference and comfort, anger and animosity, that will be part of being a holy nation. A holy nation says no and yes, but it doesn't say yes to everything. And there are people, unfortunately, who they don't get that, and they feel like they have their yes. What they want to have the yes for is so convoluted. It's so difficult, and you can tell I can easily become political. But what Peter was writing about was not political. This is about the motive and intention of one's heart. This is about how a person lives. A holy nation lives in a holy way. It behaves according to a holy design. Now, here is the reality. We have been designated, we have been made. We are, because of God's initiative, part of a holy nation. It isn't that we became holy, and so, that's why our nation is a holy nation. We've been made holy, and often we do not demonstrate the holiness that God has given us. Okay, get off that high horse. And then he says God's special possession. This, to me, there's a reason it's at the end of this brief list. It's because there are two aspects. The specialness. We're not just a possession. We are a special possession. A friend of mine, golly, more than 30 years ago now, gave me a 1964 Martin D28 guitar. And if you know anything about guitars, you know that is a sweet gift. It is incredible. The tone of this guitar is so rich and so full. The wood has aged to very near perfection. And to me, is one of my special possessions. It is one of those things I would grab to take with me if the house was on fire. Special possession. My kids are not a possession of mine, but the guitar is. Debbie, my wife, is not a possession of mine, but the guitar is. Would I try to get my kids and my wife out first? Yeah, but I'd probably come back in for my guitar because it's a special possession. We are God's special possession. This specialness is not something to just slough off. If we could embrace that, if we could embrace this specialness, as I have said, I wish I could embrace the chosenness, our lives would change. My thinking would change. My feeling would change. We are God's special possession. And the second part is, we are His possession. We are no longer our own. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians wrote, you are no longer your own. You have been bought at a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body. Yes, we are God's special possession. He didn't just inherit it. He didn't just pull it out of thin air. He didn't go to the flea market and give the bottom dollar for it. We are His special possession, purchased at the highest possible price, the price of the precious blood of Jesus. We are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. We'll pick it up there next time. I've already gone over 2 minutes. My apology. Sorry, but not sorry. I hope I get to connect with you again this way next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.